Today we have with us Chief Digital Officer of New York City, Sree Sreenivasan. Sree, thank you so much for joining us on Bloomberg Quint.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Sree, I'd like to start by asking you, what does that post entail? Chief Digital Officer of one of the most vibrant, exciting cities in the world.
Yeah.
What's it been like, and what does that job entail?
Well, it's something that we're figuring out in the process. I'm trying to get to know my 300,000 new colleagues one at a time before I start, which is of course impossible. When I started, my boss, the mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, tweeted out, welcome to the job, and let's make New York City the most tech-friendly, the most transparent, and the most digitally equitable city in the world. He didn't say one of, but the most. And in a way, it's very clear, very simple, and very scary, because now suddenly what I have to do is been laid out for everybody to see, and it gives you a roadmap where you hold this up and say, whatever you're proposing, does it fit with these three ideas?
Right.
On the other hand, someone can pick out that list a year from now and say, okay, which of these have you done beta? And the answer may be tough to prove in such a short time. So I'm excited about it. It's a chance to try something new, but at the same time, the part of the reason I'm here in India is to learn from what's happening in places like India and in other countries, because I think no city has a monopoly on good ideas. And a place like India, where there's so much happening, so much changing every day, I think Americans can especially learn a lot.
That's interesting, because you say Americans can especially learn a lot. My next question was about learning from the West and the precedent set by your work at, last time we met, you were at the Columbia School of Journalism as their first Chief Digital Officer, then at the Met, and now of course in New York City. But Sree, what I wanted to ask you was, you speak about digital equity, which is interesting, considering in times like these, the whole conversation and the rhetoric has been about inequality, which is rampant in New York City, in Mumbai, around the world. And to talk about a concept like digital equity, that's kind of interesting. That's why I want to ask you, with your trip here to Mumbai, what does that mean? And what kind of lessons can we learn from cities like New York and the kind of work that you're going to be doing there henceforth?
I think the number one thing is when you have a big city like Mumbai or a big city like New York, where New York is 8.5 million people, Mumbai is much more than that.
Absolutely.
How do you, even just by saying digital equity is important, you're putting a stake in the ground for everyone to understand that it's not just let's get the tech sector more techy, let's get the people who have lots of amenities in their lives, let's make that better. How do we make it on a fundamental basis that making the digital opportunity be fair for everyone? So I think that's just starting there is something that all these cities can think about. This idea of even this Chief Digital Officer title, I'm not the first. I follow on two incredible women who had the role in New York before me. You're seeing other cities think about this as well. There are CDOs in other cities. London is creating one. San Francisco is creating one. Ontario, the state of Ontario, where Toronto is creating one. And what they're thinking about is how do they do all the work that they're doing and make digital a part of the everyday fabric of the government. And the fact is that one of the things to think about for India is that your experiences with government are typically not happy ones. There's pain at almost every stage in the process. How do you make it a little bit easier, reduce the pain as much as possible? You're never going to make government interactions necessarily pleasurable, but can you make the pain, can you reduce the pain? And to do that, I think you have to look at it from what technology do people have and where do they want to go, what do they want to do. So we're all learning together. I think that's exciting.
Also, since we're talking about your role as Chief Digital Officer in New York City, what are your views on private investment really in the kind of goals laid out for you and the plans that you have with New York City? So the governments do their bit, the people do their bit, but also in terms of the private sector. And I'm asking this question also in terms of lessons that we can learn in Mumbai as well.
So I'm not sure exactly what's happening in Mumbai because I don't live here, but I know that in New York the idea of the kind of public-private partnership is absolutely key. Nothing's going to get done if you don't have the biggest players, and they're often in the private sector, feel like the government's supporting them, the government's interested in them, and then investing together in projects. I think that's that's what's going to be interesting. In New York, they have these old phone booths that were dotting the city, and the government worked with a company called Sidewalk that's owned by owned by Google, by Alphabet, I was going to say. And what they've done is they've replaced thousands of the phone booths with these 9-foot tall kiosks that give you the world's fastest Wi-Fi for free on the streets of New York. And eventually there'll be 10,000 of these. And you can make free phone calls, you can charge your phone, you can get this Wi-Fi. I think that's an example of how that private and public partnership can work together. And then you can apply that in different sectors. And I think there are lots of opportunities there.
When you did leave your position at the Met 3 months ago, you put up a post on your social media handles, on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, which went viral. What was going on in your head when you actually framed that post? And I know it went viral. So what's your reaction been to that? And of course, this landed you in a great place.
Sure. Well, thanks for asking about this. So for people who didn't follow it, I lost my job at the Met, and it's a job I loved. And this could happen to anybody, where you love a job and then the job doesn't love you anymore for whatever reason. And I decided to ask the web to help me, ask the internet to help me. So I posted on all these platforms saying I need help, and I gave people a form to fill in, and 1,300 people filled in the form with some great ideas, fantastic ideas, some terrible ideas.
I'm feeling I think I was one of them.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And
Sree 3.0.
yeah, so I have to reinvent myself. But the couple of important lessons there is you have to build your network when you don't need it, so that you're constantly getting people to see the value in your connection. The other thing I learned is that today, I would say to your audience today, you love what you're doing, you're very happy where you are, but imagine if tomorrow you lost your job. Who's the person you would call? And there'll be somebody, everyone has somebody who they'd call in a panic tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So today, when you don't need them and you're not in a panic, send them an SMS, send them a Facebook greeting, and just say hi. And I appreciate you. You know, that will be so helpful when bad things happen. And the only way to do that is to be upfront and ask for help. And that's one of the things I learned from this. And I got this job because I did that. So I'm grateful to the wider internet, but also to people and friends who want to be helpful. We talk in India a lot about the internet being an evil place with trolls, and there's so much of that. It's incredible how many questions I get about the trolls in India, because it's something unique, I think. There are trolls everywhere, but the level of harassment is unprecedented in some ways. But I also see the positive side of it, and so I try to be optimistic.
Thanks so much, Sree, for the Networking 101 and for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.